Lucy, I'm home. Now, that's pretty bad. I want to hear that good, don't you? Let's hear the real kind of Desi do that.
Lucy, honey, I'm home.
Pretty good. Say something else Desi-esque.
Something Desi-esque. What would I want to say? Ladies and gentlemen, I have been married to this woman for 13 years, and she still drives me crazy, but I love her.
Very nice. No, that's not Denzel Washington, and no, it isn't Lou Jacoby. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a person impersonating, or will be impersonating, Desi Arnaz. Channeling him, that's right. Bringing him through in a Whoopi Goldberg kind of a way in Ghost. Greg Purnhagen, and am I pronouncing that correctly? Because it rhymes with...
That's very good.
Thank you.
It's like Hagen-Dazs with a Pern.
Hagen-Dazs with a Pern, ladies and gentlemen. Greg Purnhagen is doing a one-person show. Well, actually, there's a couple of other people, and there's a band.
A very nice band, 7 pieces.
Oh, yes, and Desi's
first band he was actually in a group called the Sept, but there were only 5 people in it, even after he joined. So,
okay,
I think it sounded better with the S's, the Sept.
And also, it makes you sound bigger.
Yes.
Once they're in the club, they paid the money. If they only see 5 people on stage,
he's taking a break.
Where's the trombone player? Oh well, doesn't matter. I'm drunk anyway. So. What, did Saboni mean anything? Was it a member of the band? Or?
No, there was a tune called Saboni back. Oh. This was like in the 30s
right.
in Miami.
It sounds like a joke. Like, my daughter is Saboni. She can squeeze through the can. But we are... Gosh, I didn't even get to properly introduce you. This is Greg Purnhagen, as we said.
Hello.
He's doing a one-person show called... With all these other people called Babalu-cy off-Broadway at the Actors Temple Theater. It's right on the west side, 339 West 47th Street. And it's, as the title suggests and as we've been goofing about already, it is the life story of Desi Arnaz through his music and also through the tales that he tells through Greg Purnhagen. So, Greg, first of all, what are some things that our listeners, might not know about Desi Arnaz that would surprise them?
Well, I think one of the biggest things that surprises a lot of people is that his career as a band leader was quite huge. He was very successful before he met Lucy, and after World War II, his band was one of the most successful big bands. A lot of big bands started to kind of go into decline, and his actually took off. I mean, he broke and tied records with, like, Tommy Dorsey out at these big venues in the Midwest. So I think everyone thinks that he only became famous because of the show, and that he only, became famous because of his wife, and he actually brought a lot to the table.
Why do you think America was particularly ready for that Cuban Latin music? It was a real big thing. There was Xavier Cugat.
Exactly. Xavier Cugat was his first mentor, but Cugat discovered him basically in Miami when he was. I think he must have been 22, even 21, 22, and took him on the road, and he said that was his musical education right there. He didn't have to go to a conservatory. He learned the business from the inside,
right,
watching Cugat deal with the band.
But what do you think it was about the music in that period of American?
Well, part of it, it was the exotic appeal. I mean, you're looking at Valentino had already kind of come and gone. I think people were traveling to Cuba and to the islands, and it had this kind of exotic appeal in it. The beat and the rhythm, the dancing was very exciting. The other thing is that Cugat and Desi and some of the other bands, they tailored their music. They sort of made it Latin hybrid so that it was meant to be palatable to American audiences. It wasn't as it wasn't like Buena Vista Social Club, which is a little bit more, kind of authentic to the music that's happening in Cuba now, or had been happening,
right,
when they first formed. So, Desi said he wanted, the strings of, Castellanos with the percussion of machito. He used a different word, but anyway, the balls of machito.
That's fine.
If I can say that. The cojones of machito. Because he wanted that excitement of the rhythm, because he had and here's the other thing that people are surprised. He didn't do Babalu until was like well into the 40s. I think everyone thought that he like came out of his mother's the womb singing Babalu, and it's kind of surprised me even that that wasn't like an early hit.
Yeah.
He like came to it at some point, and it was a very
and yet it became somehow that signature thing for him.
Well, yeah, because of the conga, because he was very much. Not single-handedly responsible, but definitely one of the reasons the conga became popular. He introduced it in Miami, and it caught like wildfire, and then it, zoomed up the coast, got to New York. He came to New York riding this crest and became, quite famous, and then got into Too Many Girls on Broadway.
Who doesn't? But, thank you so much.
Exactly.
Now, with a name like Greg Purnhagen, people listening, I'm looking at you. I see certainly the resemblance to Desi, and certainly also to the Latin culture. But your name doesn't necessarily jibe.
This is true. Why
is that? And tell us the familial reason why Desi Arnaz is such a signpost for you.
Okay. Well, in a nutshell, I'm Cuban by birth. My father was Cuban. My mother is American. But due to, another story someday in another show, I was given up for adoption, and so I grew up...
Well, you just weren't good enough. I mean, let's just be honest about that.
I don't know. My parents always told me I was very special, and that's why they picked me.
Just kidding.
Anyway, but, I grew up here on Long Island in Massapequa Park in what was basically... The dominant culture growing up was Italian-American. My mom's family was big, meaning my adoptive parents.
Right.
And so my dad's name is German-Dutch, and, I grew up, knowing that I was Cuban because I always knew I was adopted. My parents adopted my younger sister also, and it was just, it was a fact of life. There was no stigma. Nobody ever made fun of us. We were just like, yeah, we're adopted, so what?
Sure.
But growing up, I always, I watched the show as a kid, at some point when I was a kid, you could see it, 3 or 4 times a day. It seemed like it was on.
Sure.
In the morning, it was on. At supper time, it was on. Late at night, and
this is before even cable. This is, now you can certainly find it anytime.
Yeah, reruns, but and reruns, on I guess I think it was on Channel 5.
Right.
And he, to me, was sort of my. I don't want to say example. He was like...
more than an icon.
More than an icon, he was like, it was like he was what he was what I thought it meant to be Cuban. He was this, dashing, musician, and he had the temper, and he had the beautiful wife, but he also had the accent, and he had, the funny way of, speaking and referring to, Cuba and being home and, and his family. And so, I kind of projected onto him. And again, it wasn't in a way, it wasn't like I felt like I was missing something as being part of a family because, my parents loved me and we were, I was very happy as a kid growing up. But I always also knew that there was this part of me that was kind of, genetic and intrinsic. And I had no one to turn to and no one to like show me, what does it mean to be Cuban? And it was Desi who really...
And also, I can see the physical resemblance, as I said. And
yeah, a little bit.
What did kids call you in high school? Your friend, actually.
My friends called me Ricky Ricardo. That's a lot of the time, yeah.
So at what point, though, did the idea of actually doing Desi and Ricky...
now that I'm doing it, it's shocking how long it took because, I've been working as a freelance musician and singing and doing a lot of different things for a long time. I did cabaret about, almost over, 15 years ago. I started doing shows just, for fun because I liked the American Songbook and I loved picking the material and arranging it.
Sure.
And then I kind of got out of it. And then after 9/11, I realized that, if you really love doing something, you have to do it now. Like, don't sit around and wait. I was always like letting the rest of my career kind of make money, and that was, where I would put my energy. And I'll just do the cabaret, next year. And then next year became 2 years, and then it became 3 years. And so when I came back, I decided I was really going to focus and stick with it. And I made a list of shows. And I felt like the first couple of shows I had to get my feet wet again and sort of get back into it. But then number 4 was this, I called it the Desi Project. I called it, finding my inner Desi. a show that would deal with with Desi, D-E-S-I. Anyway.
Well, not the Indian one, but yeah.
He sort of got me in touch with, the Latino.
And you told me when we spoke earlier that initially you combined both things. You made the show the story of your life and how you got into and your adoption and all that. And then the director said...
Well, when we decided, I shouldn't say we decided, when I became lucky enough to have some producers hear about the project, in the cabaret form, they came to see it and they said, we want to make it more theatrical, and we think the most important thing to do is to put you into character the whole time. Like in the original cabaret show, I sang as him, and then I talked about him, and then there was a segment with Lucy, and then I was pretty much in character, and then I talked a little bit more about my personal connection, because that's what cabaret is often about, is, revealing your own, yourself. But I totally understood what they wanted, and I said, it made sense. I mean, I didn't even hesitate. I said, okay, am I going for a slavish kind of rich little imitation, or can it just be, as much of an embodiment as I can do? Because I don't resemble him identically physically, but I look, And I get the facial mannerisms, and the hands and the gestures, and I just, I study him.
And what people might not realize, we were talking, almost glossing over the cabaret stuff, but you also did a stint in modern, not atonal, but kind of serial music.
I've done, a lot of minimalist music, and I've worked a lot with Philip Glass. And,
wow.
And that got me a gig singing on one of Bjork's CDs.
Now, you met Bjork only when you literally came in to do the gig.
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was fantastic. She was doing an album that was mostly pretty much like 99% a cappella, and she had written all this choral music and then done all these multi-tracks using her own voice, and then she was also working with a lot of like human beatbox guys and some other indie pop singers, and she needed someone who was like, she wanted a classically trained baritone who was really willing to be experimental, and the guys at the studio said, call Greg. And they called me, and they wouldn't tell me who the project was for. They said, are you free to do a session on, next Friday? It's for a very special artist. And I said, okay, I'll say yes, because because I want to know who it is. Yeah. And once they confirmed it and everything, they said, okay, you're recording for Bjork. I was like, shocked and
excited. Did you have to sight read music when you got there?
I did.
Yeah, so that's how
we were having music faxed from Iceland.
Wow.
In the studio. And we just broke it down. I think I'm on 3 or 4 tracks. And
but which album? Sorry.
It's called
Volta or
No. Oh man.
Not Homogenic.
Medulla.
Okay.
God, it's that was like, I think it's either 2 or 3 years ago. I almost forgot.
It went out of your head.
Exactly.
Ironically.
Yeah, it hit me. So we would look at one piece at a time, and I would look at the music, and then she would play the tracks that she had already laid down, that weren't fully produced yet. And, she would talk about what she wanted and, what she needed from me. And then we'd try a couple of things, and I'd, do some passes, like a rehearsal. And then we would just go and do some actual takes. So, it was just the two of us in the studio with an engineer and, her assistant.
Cool.
And so, we got to talk a lot in between, just about music and art. And, I'm like in total awe of her.
Sure.
But,
she wasn't dressed as a swan or anything.
No, but she had a cute outfit on.
Okay.
It was very much her style.
It was Bjorky, okay.
But she was really lovely, and she was very focused. And she was, respectful of me because of, what, she knew what I had done with Philip Glass and working with Meredith Monk, and so it was kind of interesting. I'm like in such total awe of her and her talent, and it was very nice that,
And she liked you well enough that you ended up singing for her or with her again.
Yes, well, for her. She invited me to get something together for a Christmas party at her house with Matthew Barney. Her husband. The conceptual artist. And so I got some friends together, and we put together this very kind of eclectic but interesting Christmas program, that had a lot of medieval music, which sounds almost like minimalism. A lot of it's kind of spooky and moody, and no, we didn't do White Christmas or Jingle Bells.
No, okay.
I thought for this crowd, we'll do something really out there.
Or Draggle for that matter.
And they loved it.
That's great.
At that party, she was wearing Harlequin jodhpurs that were like pink and burgundy, these big diamonds, and then she had on this little green top, and on her, she was wearing a bowl of plastic cherries on her head.
And you didn't bring a camera, dude.
I just didn't seem like,
Even the camera phone whipped it out and sold it to National.
Wish we could have. I mean, my favorite part of the evening, though, is after we did the concert. There were people all over the house, and they had roasted a pig in the backyard, and so she brought us down to this huge kitchen. It's this old house on the Hudson River, just above the George Washington Bridge, and the kitchen. The pig is sitting on like the kitchen counter, just like stretched out for 7 feet, and people have been eating it, and there was all this food, and she's like, "Would you like some leftovers?" And she started packing up food and Tupperware and here, please, we have so much, take it home, giving us leftover roast pig.
Go figure. Bjork is a Jewish mother. So, by the way, are you married? Do you have kids?
No.
Oh, okay. Are you in the process of, or
no? I'm you are
free.
I'm a free freelancer, but
okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
Just wondering. I have one other question about Desi, because there's someone who wants to talk to Ricky Ricardo.
Oh, really?
It isn't going to be me, because I'm more on a one-to-one with you. Rabbi Sal Solomon has been a fan of I Love Lucy for many, many years.
Kidding.
He used to watch it 6 times a day, even though it was only on 4 times a day. So he's going to come in and talk to Desi. But I have a question for you about Desi.
Sure.
How much do you think of the Ricky Ricardo character was really Desi, and how much was he putting on?
I think it's one of those things where maybe it's not half and half, but certainly, first of all, they originally based the first script of the pilot was going to be based on their real lives, and he was going to be Desi Arnaz, the orchestra leader, and she was Lucille Ball, the film star.
Right.
And then they said he thought it was a good script, but he also thought that audiences wouldn't relate to them as celebrities. So who cares if we have trials and tribulations? At the end of the show, we still get a photo session for Life magazine. So they went back to it and made it, a struggling musician and a wife who's frustrated and trying to get into the show so that she wasn't successful in her own right. And he really thought that the Battle of the Sexes was where it would resonate with a wider audience, and just this kind of timeless struggle, and then of course having the neighbors, Fred and Ethel would just give them more chances and more opportunities to work on that.
Well, speaking of timeless struggles,
yes,
we're going to put in Rabbi Sal Solomon to talk to Desi Arnaz right after this message. Shalom. Damn it! Oh, this is a thrill for me. This is so exciting because I used to watch I Love Lucy so much. It was such a joyful thing. My parents would let me watch the television, just to see that, because it was a domestic family. And even though they were Cuban, they had good family Jewish values. The father was always yelling, and the mother was making a mess. This to me is Jewish values. So it is exciting to me to talk to the wonderful, the exciting Babalu King himself. He's Babalu-cy is how I would say it. Desi Arnaz, pleasure.
Oh, thank you, Rabbi. It's so nice to see you.
Oh, have you ever been to a synagogue? Have you ever? You must have Jewish friends.
I think I've been to a synagogue. I think I've sung in a few synagogues.
So have I. And they've thrown me out for doing as much.
Well, in my days when I was touring with the band, we would play any place they sent us to. So
it's like my early days as a rabbi.
I'm sure I played up in the Borscht Belt.
Really? Oh, this is good. You could add a little salsa to the borscht and make it really spicy. It makes it nice. What is it like being married to such a dynamo like Lucille Ball?
Oh, I tell people, first of all, when I want to assign responsibility for the success of I Love Lucy, I give Lucy 90%. Because without her, we all wouldn't be here.
You should be giving your agent 15%. That's what I do.
But,
she used to take 10. Now he wants 15. He's asking for 18.
You got to watch those agents. They will screw you out of every cent they can.
I know it. But is she, when she's not Lucy on the screen, is she different? Is she what? Is she?
Well, We are a little bit like our characters, so I think, there's a little bit of the craziness, but she also, she fights back. She doesn't always let me push her around the way even on the show, I mean, she's always scheming against me, so you can't say that I'm always in charge, even though I think I am.
Oh, the man is never. And so let me tell you something. My Miriam Libby stays home and has babies. Lucy, she had babies. She brought them to the studio 3 days later.
That's right.
She's a go-getter, that.
Oh, Winchell used to joke that little Ricky's birth was part of or Desi Jr.'s birth was part of the script, because we timed it out so that we could actually air that episode on the same day that she was giving birth.
This is a calculating and a smart woman.
Oh, and hey, I had a little something to do with it,
And you must be proud of the children. You got Lucy Arnaz.
Absolutely. They're so terrifically talented. I mean, Lucy she's just a joy to behold.
This is true. I've never held her, but I'm sure it's a joy to hold her. As an obviously Latin person, and I hope you take that in the way I mean it.
Well, I hope so.
Did you ever experience prejudice coming up as a band leader?
Oh, absolutely. Not so much as a band leader, but when we went to CBS, nobody wanted me. They used to call me the bongo player.
Oh, well.
And, Lucy actually had to go to bat for me. She said, if the Cuban goes, I go. I mean, it got down to that because, first of all, they didn't think anyone would believe we could be married. Meanwhile, we had been married for 10 years already. And we were an established couple in Hollywood. But, they thought, oh, no, out in Peoria or, in the heartland, they're not going to believe it. And of course, my accent was a little thick.
No.
So,
I've been told that too,
My father always said that someday my mouth would catch up to my ears, but it never really happened.
There's something filthy there. I'm not even going to go near. We only have a minute left with the wonderful Desi Arnaz. Can you do something for me that I would love? It's not Babalu. No, it is.
Okay. Really?
You can start with Babalu. Can you do a Cuban version of Haba Nagila? Just Cuba it up a little bit.
Nagila.
Oh, yes.
Nagila.
Yes, damn it.
Nagila veismachav. I don't even know the words, but I'm going to.
It was beautiful. I'm so happy. I wish we had more time with Desi Arnaz.
Muchas gracias, Rabbi.
And everybody go see Desi's very good friend, Greg Purnhagen, doing Babalu-cy at the Actors Temple Theater, 339 West 47th Street. And they can even go to, what's that guy's website? But he has a website, doesn't he?
Who has a website? Greg Purnhagen?
Yes.
Yes, www.gregpurnhagen.com.
GregPurnhagen.com. Thank you, Desi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
And please say Babalu.
Mazel tov. Babalu, Babalu, Babalu-cy, Babalu-cy, Babalu.